Hey everyone, long time no see. It's been a couple weeks, so sorry about that. But anyways, we got some flashbacks to a couple sieges ago against Ocitocina and Solidarity, and as you can see from the results here, Ocitocina just completely ate everything in their path. I'm pretty sure they're still a top 5 guild. I could be wrong on that, but they're very strong and they destroyed us. I had a pretty good siege, so we'll go over my matches and see what we did. This first one's kind of fun against the Sylvia, Iris, and Tesarion. I brought Tesarion, Lucia, and Delphoy, so I got the double Oblivion into his triple passive defense, not to mention 2 cleanses, one being AoE that also gives AoE immunity. A nice little advantage that Delphoy has over like Lulu with her AoE cleanse is that the immunity is guaranteed compared to Lulu being conditional immunity, because if she cleanses, you don't get the immunity. So that's another little nice thing about Delphoy. I've made a video on her calling her dupe worthy. I finally summoned a dupe of her and I'm working on building another one because I've had nothing but success when I tend to use her. This like double Oblivion support kind of offense seems really strong into a lot of different things. So this defense tends to be a scary one. Anytime I see Sylvia Iris, it's just like, fuck me, you know, because Iris is just guaranteed to stun everything. Sylvia, makes her move constantly. I see Perna more often than Tesarion, but Tesarion's a nice little defense unit here to take out people's passives and stuff and deal damage, but he lacks healing and he doesn't have a second life, so I don't know if he's strong. He also doesn't have the strip that Perna has now, so I feel like Perna's probably still stronger than Tesarion in this position, but it's still a strong, scary defense that I'm sure a lot of people don't have tons of counters for, but this one worked out really well. It wasn't really too scary. I think as long as Iris doesn't go completely nuts on the despair stuns, you have enough like fail safes on the offense that it'll get the win the vast majority of the time. All right, so we got another Sylvia. This time we're with Nora and Savannah. Nora being a really strong defense unit in this current meta, but one thing that just completely hard counters Nora is Juno. There's been a handful of times where I've brought Juno in and she actually solos like I tend to bring like Tesarion Juno plus a support, usually either Lala or Lulu, kind of depends, but I've had times where both Tesarion and the support die and Juno still just manages to solo because Nora is just so incompatible with Juno. So many debuffs are going on her, so she's just self-healing like crazy. I guess you could lose if like whatever threat is on the defense happens to just go nuts. In this case, the threat is a wind unit in Savannah, which you can see I got Oblivioned and killed rather quickly, and then it's like there's nothing they can do. Sylvia doesn't have much damage herself, and Nora's damage comes in the form of dots. Juno just can handle that pretty easily. So as long as you own Juno, Nora defenses aren't too difficult, assuming, relatively equal rune quality. I do think probably rather than like Despair Nemesis or Despair Revenge Juno, something like a Vampire Destroy Juno or Vampire Revenge Juno is probably like even more safe than a typical Despair Juno into these. But regardless, I feel like it's pretty hard for you to lose if you're bringing along like a Tesarion, because it's usually Savannahs and Nana and that kind of thing that are paired along. Monsters with passives are just very common on defenses in today's meta, so Tesarion's just kind of OP, and then bring a support and you just get an easy win. All right, moving on, we have a Odin, Bastet, and Perna, which is relatively easy to outspeed. So I brought a Sierra, Songseol, and a Lucia. Songseol is really good against Bastet and like Dracos and that kind of thing because she prevents any kind of buffs from happening. So she's pretty good into these Odin comps that, require buffs to get that ignore defense and that high damage. And then Lucia provides additional support and healing and, crowd control. She's just kind of nasty. And then Sierra is your damage. Now in this case, the Perna is hitting hard and going directly for Sierra, which is, a little scary. Something like a Kamoon Bastet Odin I think is probably a little less scary because Kamoons tend to not hit as hard as Perna. Kamoon, his damage comes from them being at lower HP, so it starts out kind of weak and then he gets more and more damage. But Perna just is consistent damage across the board. Another kind of a funny thing that can happen is just Bastet derping, which ends up screwing you because then she has saved her skill 3 to use for whenever the song is finished. And that happens, unfortunately, like often. It just happens too much. Bastet derps quite a bit. It almost seems like she derps more when Song Seal does her song. I don't know if that's actually true. I haven't, or maybe I have tested that. I can't remember if I've tested that or not, but it's one of those things where when it does happen, you're just like, really? Like, why? Why did that have to happen? But as long as Sierra stays alive and you get a kill on some people, usually Lucia and Song Seal can clean up. Like, if at least one of the 2 threats has been dealt with, you're probably going to be in the clear. So you can see here, Bastet is dead, Perna is asleep and has a bomb on it. I miss a bomb with Sierra there, which sucks, but that's Sierra for you. That's why you should rune her 100 crit rate, because, you know, you can't control the RNG of missing a bomb, but what you can control is cycling turns, so you can attempt landing more bombs more frequently. So make sure to build Sierra 100 crit rate if your runes allow you to do so. And yeah, I ended up getting a pretty comfortable win with this offense this time around. All right, so this next one's kind of fun. We got 2 LD Nat 5s and a Miles. So Nigong and Miles is a pretty nasty combo. You got the AoE revive kind of buff with Shazam too, having AoE revenge. So he's got 2 AoE buffers giving Miles a fair amount of speed, and then he's got, you know, a bunch of revenge. He's super tanky. He's got defense break. He's got light units, so it's, you know, unless you bring a dark unit, it's not easy to tank. And then Miles can just smack really hard too. Luckily, I haven't used my 1 Leo yet, so Leo is one relatively hard counter to Miles because it just completely negates his passive. He won't be dealing the additional damage by speed if he has no speed. That's my tip for Miles, is own Leo. If you don't own Leo, you can bring like a fire tank like Helena that has innate water reduction, and then just try and kill him as quickly as you can, or keep Helena alive while you kill the other people. Something along those lines. But in this case, I'm bringing Jean, Royd, and Leo. I have a destroy set on my Royd, so it's kind of a long match. My Jean is rather tanky, but he's got destroy sets. Defense breaks can happen, and my Jean could die at any point. Royd works well here too, to control people's attack bar, land some defense breaks. His destroy won't be like super felt because at least my Royd doesn't do significant amount of damage the way he's built. In addition to the attack bar pushback that both Leo and Royd have, the provokes from Royd and Jean together is really nice to try and prevent the Nigong from ever being able to revive. And so once Miles is dead, he lost a good chunk of his damage. So at that point, it's just, can I kill Nigong quick enough to not let Miles live, or, you know, come back to life? And I end up doing so successfully, which is convenient. Of course, Nigong could violent proc out of the provokes and revive, and then violent proc again and skill 2 and heal Miles up, and the skill 2 does enough damage too that it's kind of scary, but it works out here. It's a good defense. I mean, there's certainly plenty of ways to beat it, but it's I don't know, highly compatible. Like, it makes a lot of sense. You have a stripper, you have healing, you have damage from everyone, you have a light defense breaker, which, you know, you have no idea what element he happens to hit. So it's unless you bring a dark tank, there's no exact means of knowing where they're going to be targeting. So it's a pretty good defense. I like it, but my Leo comp worked out for me here. So this next one, we have a Theo, Molly, and Rakan. Theo, Molly +1 is really common right now. It's usually Cigar, the wind bison dude, which is really nasty. So is Dominic, I think. That's typically more common. People that don't own those will try things like Theo, Molly, Tyrannus, but the typical idea is Theo, Molly +1 because it's kind of scary to cleave whenever Molly exists, and it's also kind of scary to cleave with a Theo because Theo prevents his death. He's got a really low cooldown on that passive now, so he gets the soul prevention or something. I can't remember what the name of that buff is at the moment, but that's surprisingly a strong little buff that Theo has. He cycles back into it rather quickly, and if you don't kill him, Molly heals him back to like 50% HP with a really thick shield. He can easily just skill 2 defense break, proc skill 1, and that's no fun. Anyways, I saw this Elsharion Wendy Riley be used by Coco in my guilds, and it looked really solid. So I moved my Tesarion runes over to Elsharion to give it a shot, and it worked beautifully. Like, it wasn't even all that scary. Riley is kind of OP. Wendy's pretty solid here to if he gets targeted, he's not going to get defense broken, which is nice. He's giving the entire team a shield. The whole team is just full of buffs. I'm stealing their buffs. And then, the more buffs I have, the better. Just for everyone, obviously, but particularly better for Elsharion because of his passives. It was just good stuff. And sorry about the messages I'm getting there that I have blurred. I was recording all this on my phone, so that's why that came up. So this next one is Bastet, Odin, and Masha. So very similar to the Bastet, Odin, Perna that we fought earlier, and very similar to Kamun Bastet, Odin, which I've made a counter video for in the past. So this was one of the counter teams that I have for that. Just Nana, Tesarion, Triana is not foolproof because Odin can, of course, target the Triana first. But you have a nice failsafe and that Nana can bring him back. The thing here is Masha has like permanent immunity, so you can't really ever Oblivion her or defense break her since there's no strip on the offense. So that's a little scary thing about Masha, but you can still kill the Odin rather quickly. And the moment you do, you have Nana stacks, and then you can kill him again, and then boom, Nana stacks. So even though Masha could potentially kill your Triana with just a single violent proc, lands the defense break procs and then kills no matter how tanky your Triana is. Masha is insane, dude. Like, she hits so freaking hard. It's absurd. I get some nice procs in this one, but it's a good offense. Again, not foolproof, but if you have the monsters, it's mostly free to play. It's just the Nana that you need to own, and it works relatively well against most Odin comps. So I'm not done yet. Got more Odins to hit. This is the same exact defense, though a very different offense. This is one I saw another one of my guildies use, and I figured, let's give it a shot. It's similar to the suicide team that you bring into like Zero, Ryan, Perna, but instead of a Samoth or Cyan or something, I'm using a Tyrannus, which can not only bring back himself, but bring back someone else. And that's what I needed to do because they managed to kill my Perna twice pretty early on. So my Tyrannus brought back the Perna. Unfortunately, my Ayunu left Odin at like 1 HP, which required me to, finish him off, which is kind of a little bit of a waste of a turn. But then I do get the kill on the Odin, and it's back to being 3v2, so I'm like up all of a sudden. And Masha is nasty, dude. I want Masha. I've been doing RTA this season, and I feel like I have nothing to compete with this nonsense unit. She is so good. She like hits insanely hard no matter what. Like, I could bring Leo, I can bring Miles, I bring Abellio, I bring Shizuka. I don't know. Masha just smacks. She hits everything incredibly hard, and a single proc from her usually means someone is dead. I've even like put fire reduction artifacts on people just to deal with her because she's such a common first pick. It seems like well over half of people that I fight are first picking Masha. Wish I owned her, but I do not. So yeah, she is just disgusting. So here we are, 2v1 against Masha. She's off her pony, and she kills both Perna and Tyrannus. And this was my only loss, and it was very sad. So I had that depressing loss, but that's not going to stop me from trying again, and it's going to be a pretty similar team to the Sierra version, but I'm bringing Rakan instead of Sierra, which kind of works out well here because, even though Rakan will be targeted just like Sierra will be targeted, he at least like gives himself immunity to prevent defense breaks, so I feel like he's a little tankier in that regard. Not to mention he has a strip, so he can actually strip and then allow Elucia to do things to Masha, which is fantastic. So you can see I got an actual sleep on Masha, which is great. And then I can deal with the Rakan before I deal with the Masha at all. So this was I don't know, I feel like the previous team, the Suicide team, was still a safe-ish comp. I mean, of course it lost, but I think vast majority of the time you're probably going to win. Like if my Ayunu, for example, actually didn't leave someone at 1 HP, he would have had that much more damage that I could have had on Masha. That was one turn that was wasted because I left someone at 1 HP. So things like that are like on my runes rather than on the team itself, and that's fixable. So anyways, Rakan does get exploded here because Masha hits hard, but at this point she's off her horse, and she's into 2 water units, so as long as she doesn't go too crazy with procs and actually landing crits, Lucia can keep people alive, and slowly but surely we can deal with the Masha, and then it's a 2v1 against Bastet that has no healing, and we have lots of CC both through Songseol's skill 2 and Lucia's skill 1. I mean, her skill 3 too, but she just gets woken up by the sleep. So really it's the skill 1 that's going to be pushing the attacker back and freezing, and then if necessary, I'll just save the skill 2 heal for whenever Bastet does do her defense break, you know, her skill 2 glancing defense break heal block kind of thing. She never even gets the opportunity. I take that back. She got the opportunity, but still, too little too late. So I can't remember if I said it earlier, but I only recorded 9 matches. The last match that I missed recording was the Galliantiana Poseidon, which usually is like a 30-second fight anyways. So this one is a Iris, Shazam, and Triana. And I brought Mirene, Tion, Lucian. I wasn't very scared, even though there's a Triana here. I put on some damage dealt on light and damage dealt on wind onto my Lucian. Put a fight set on Tion because I wasn't really worried about getting outsped. And then Mirene is OP. I even put a fight set on her just to get some extra damage and get my revenge on Orkurt, whatever his name is, because his Masha was mean to me. So that was it for this one. Got number 1 in contribution. I actually, one of my defenses did pretty well against Solidarity. It's the Sierra Ryan Rakan, which if you want to see how that defense is built, you can check out that video. It's a really, it's my only good defense. Like, I don't have meta units. I don't own Molly. So like right there, I can't build things. I don't own Kinky, so can't do 4 stars. It's just like the only exclusionary metas for me are RTA and Siege Defense, unfortunately, because both of those metas require you to own certain units. And if you don't, you're just kind of left out, which is a little sad. But at least on Siege Offense, I can build as many dupes as I want and compete pretty well. So there's that. That's all for this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.